Okay, today we have Leah Carawan, who is the Executive Director of the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation. And that's an organization that is doing a number of things. It's trying to get the nation back to a biblical foundation, and specifically through the nation's leaders, and encouraging them to pray together and to work together and to advance biblical values. Rather than have me explain what Leah is up to, I'm going to turn it over to her. She's going to speak for about 8 to 10 minutes about what the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation is doing, and then we'll open it up to questions. So go ahead, Leah.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. I really am grateful for being on the call with all of you. Yes, the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation was established. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were established to work alongside the government leaders, like you said, across the nation, who are committed to protecting religious freedom and preserving our Judeo-Christian heritage, promoting prayer and God's enduring place in America. And we work alongside the Congressional Prayer Caucus. Some of your listeners might be familiar, but if you aren't, the Congressional Prayer Caucus is actually an official U.S. House caucus in Washington. It now has over 100 members of Congress who are part of this caucus, and we have the exact same mission, vision, and values, but separate entities. And these congressional leaders, where the place that this started was in 2005. Congressman Forbes, he had it on his heart that he felt convicted that he and the other his peers were the leaders of this nation, and they were the ones that were responsible to ensure this nation goes in the right direction, and it clearly was going in the wrong direction, and they wanted to make sure that we protected our religious freedom. They began to pray together in room 219. Congressman Forbes reserved that room for 30 minutes before session every single week. It's either a Monday or a Tuesday before they go out for their votes every single week. They're continuing to do that even today. And what started in 2005 with 1 or 2 or 3 people, now sometimes that room is filled with legislators from both sides of the aisle coming together in Washington to pray before they cast their first votes every week. And out of that prayer time and those relationships, that's how the Congressional Prayer Caucus formed. Then they realized that the power of uniting and coming together to be able to accomplish this was crucial. And so they have experienced a number of victories and reversed several of the attacks on religious freedom. Everything from reversing the decision in the Capitol Visitor Center where they tried to exclude, architects of the Capitol tried to exclude "In God We Trust," tried to exclude the Declaration of Independence and the Pledge of Allegiance, all because they mentioned the word God. Tried to actually just put in "E pluribus unum" in place of our national motto, "In God We Trust," and hoping nobody would notice, I guess. But the Congressional Prayer Caucus was there. They reversed it, including a number of similar things that are happening. And what they used to take weeks or even sometimes months to get from legislator to legislator, now because they have a formal caucus and they've built relationships, they can get 60 or 100 signatures on a bill or a letter in an hour, just to ensure that they protect our religious freedom. So it's a very powerful caucus, made a huge impact. And what the foundation does is that we now take that same concept and that pattern, and we've expanded it across the nation. So we now have over 400 legislators at the state and local level who have joined together in a network called the American Prayer Caucus Network. And 15 states have actually formed official prayer caucuses, same vision, same mission. They work together, they pray together. And now we have this pretty significant network of government leaders who understand what's at stake. And I think sometimes people look at our government and wonder, does anybody understand? Is anybody doing the right thing up there? And the fact is, yes, there really are across this nation a lot of good government leaders, men and women, who feel just like you and I and most of the listeners on this call that we have to do something to ensure that God continues to have his enduring place in America and that we protect religious freedom that's under attack right now. And so we have done a couple of things. In addition to this network of government leaders, we have a network of prayer leaders, prayer intercessors, and Room 219 prayer groups. When people started to hear about what was happening in Congress in this Room 219, people began to form 219 prayer groups. So we just helped them along, and now we facilitate over 8,000 219 prayer groups and individuals. What I mean is we don't facilitate them, but we provide them with materials. We provide them with prayer points every week. We have over 60,000 prayer partners now across the nation that we provide monthly information to for them to pray for our leaders and government and what's happening. And then the last thing I'll tell you about is another initiative that we rolled out. The reason why we rolled this one out, it's called the In God We Trust, Put It Up campaign. It was in response to the aggressive attacks to remove the symbols of faith and the crosses and really a concerted, orchestrated effort of people to try to remove God from our nation, from our public square, from our conversation. And symbols and his presence matters. We can't, it matters to people when they're able to stand behind the Pledge of Allegiance, speak the Pledge of Allegiance, or sing the national anthem, or recite the national motto, In God We Trust, or see it plastered on a wall. And so in November of 2011, the Congressional Prayer Caucus members put forth a Resolution 13 in Congress. And what the resolution was to reaffirm In God We Trust as our national motto. And that resolution not only reaffirm it, but also to encourage the public display of it in every school and government building across America. That resolution passed with 396 votes. It was overwhelming. And so not only that, but the In God We Trust was originally approved in 1864. In 1956, it was signed into law. In 2002, our president reaffirmed it. In 2006, the Senate reaffirmed it. So this was just in a long line of reaffirmations that In God We Trust is our national motto. So what we've done is we've rolled out a campaign called In God We Trust, Put It Up. And just following the lead and the broad support that our government leaders are saying, listen, put it up in the schools and the government buildings and the government institutions. So we've had several layers of this In God We Trust campaign that have rolled out. We've been so thrilled with the response. We have a lady in Michigan organized a art contest for 600 high schools all throughout the state of Michigan, with the celebration ceremony of the winners being honored at the Michigan State Capitol. We have nearly 100 members of Congress who have agreed to put In God We Trust displays prominently in their offices so that their constituents can come in and see it as they go throughout their workday. We have individuals across the nation. A tax assessor in Texas just confirmed that he was going to put In God We Trust on all the official documents that go out from his office. And again, it's our national motto, so it's a safe harbor. There is complete support. It's been attacked 7 times, challenged 7 times in the court system, and every time it has ended with a resounding, this is appropriate and God stays. It will be our national motto. And so I think one of the things that we've rolled out so that everybody can get involved is a Million Window campaign. And I know that Stand America has jumped on board, and they have been a big promoters of this. And I believe you saw the information if you got the email today. And that is a commitment to get 1 million window clings or window decals on cars, homes, offices across the nation, and loudly proclaim that we are a nation that still will say, In God We Trust. We won't shrink back. We're not going to be told that we have to check our face at the door, that God's not welcome in America, but instead we're going to proclaim loudly, In God We Trust. And so we're hoping that everybody will get on board, and that you'll go click on the email that you have sent out to everybody and buy a window cling. And we've made it very inexpensive, $5. That's with shipping and handling and everything. Of course, the more you buy, the less it is per window cling. But we want to make it affordable and just get this message out and get In God We Trust up. And And my final word is just that this is not just 4 words. Symbols have meaning. And we believe that this is the kind of thing that can change the momentum. We have notable people on board, from major organizations to celebrities. We have a video that's come out, and it's going viral on YouTube, that has celebrities and members of Congress and everyday citizens who understand that we have to change the narrative. We no longer can sit back, because those people that are saying, that are leading the narrative and that are saying you can't talk about God, the only reason that's holding any ground is because we have not stood up and say no. There has been a deep respect for God and God's place in this country, and we're not going to stand by and let that happen. That we're going to actually fight for the hope and inspiration that these words, "In God We Trust," provide for our country. So with that, I'll just open it up for any questions.
Well, that's a great overview, Leah. Thank you. Martin, you can go ahead and turn on the Q&A. And meanwhile, I want to ask a couple questions, Leah. But first, you don't hear about too many outspoken atheists in Congress. I remember Congressman Stark from California was one of them. I'm not sure he's still in office. Is there an atheist caucus as well, or are they just so rare that they don't bother?
I don't believe there's an atheist caucus. Certainly not one that I've heard from. And the truth of the matter is, I know people think that this is coming primarily from the government, and they kind of blame the government for this aggressive attack on religious freedom. But the truth is, this is not primarily coming from the government. The government certainly will either provide an environment where it can grow or will stifle the attacks on religious freedom. But these attacks on religious freedom are coming from well-funded, well-orchestrated citizens and organizations that are bent on getting God out of America for their own personal agenda. And it's just a handful. It's just a minority in our country. The vast majority of government leaders and citizens believe the same way, that we must protect our religious freedom and God's place in America.
Well, if you have a question for Leah, hit *6, right, Martin? Isn't that how it goes?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
and
please
you'll be put in the queue.
Right. You'll be in the queue, and then it's in order. What do you think, Leah, is the greatest threat to religious freedom in this country right now?
Oh, that's a great question. To be honest, I think it's apathy.
Apathy.
I think it's people. I do. I think it's people that we've been. Andrew Jackson, I believe it was the one that said it's eternal vigilance by the people is the price of freedom. And that's really the truth. I think we've sat back, and Christians have reverted and have left the public square to its own devices and aren't standing up and speaking up. And so, of course, other values and other people's opinions and convictions are going to become loud voices and start influencing our laws and policies. And the truth of the matter is, if all the people who believe the same way that I do, that I'm talking today, if everyone would stand up with one voice, there's no question in my mind that some of the aggressive attacks on religious freedom would be reversed in a moment. So I believe it just needs the vast majority of people who believe this way to stand up and do something about it.
Great. And we've got a call coming in from ending in 7430. Again, if you have any questions, just press *6 on your phone. 7430.
Thank you, Leah. It's a wonderful thing that you are all doing. Is your organization involved at all with what's going on in Iraq with the persecution of Christians there and in the whole of the Middle East, actually? It's a shame that the crime was a long time coming, and now it may be too late for a lot of Christians who are now suffering there.
Now, that's a great question. We're deeply troubled, of course, by what's happening overseas in the Middle East and to Christians. And right now, I can't speak for what the Congressional Prayer Caucus members are doing, what the members of Congress are doing. I do know that there are a number of them that are actively engaged in multiple ways to do what they can to ensure that not only that stops, but that people know about it and that it comes to light, so that the public eye, the world scrutiny can be can be focused on that and work together to stop that. The Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation, what we're trying to do is we've put it out in our prayer updates to make sure that everybody in our networks are praying for the Christians around the world, because the truth of the matter is we may not be experiencing that here in America, but if we don't stop what's happening in America, it may not reach our doors in our lifetime, but certainly our children and our grandchildren, they're going to be facing the exact same thing. So we have to stop it everywhere we possibly can right now. And what's happening to those Christians across the water is just absolutely horrifying, and we're doing everything we can to make people aware that it's happening and pray and stand with them.
Thank you.
Martin, if you don't have another caller right now.
Yeah, there are no other callers right now. If you'd like to have raise a question, you can just press *6, but you can go right ahead.
Okay. We look out there, and much of the damage has been done by the courts, egged on by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. In fact, they're still trying to remove the cross at the Veterans Cemetery at Mount Soledad in San Diego. And, Congress has stepped in very strongly and passed legislation declaring the cross okay, turning the property over to the private foundation that runs the cemetery. And the ACLU is still trying to tear the cross down. I mean, the case is still in the courts. It's just amazing to me. Even after the U.S. Supreme Court said the situation was fine as it is, they remanded the case. So it's still a live case. Do you keep a list of ongoing legal threats to public expression of Christianity or religion? Or I notice you have a series of news items on your website. Very interesting reading. I went there this morning and I was looking at them, and there was some newspaper editor fired for blogging, criticizing a new version of the Bible on his own on a private website. He was fired by a newspaper, and Todd Starnes wrote about it. Todd works for Fox News, but he also writes for the Christian Post. It's very interesting stuff. But are you as concerned about the courts as you are Congress, or are you just concentrating on Congress pretty much?
Well, no, I'm deeply concerned, of course, about what the courts are doing, because there's no question the bias in the judicial system toward not protecting our religious liberty is something to be concerned about. But the one thing that we felt like is we cannot just rest. I mean, we cannot just rely entirely on defense and defending in our court system. That's where we sort of have decided our unique opportunity is to be proactive, to go on the offense. And so, yes, we mostly focus our attention on the congressional and legislative opportunities to provide enduring laws and policies that continue to reflect Judeo-Christian values, because the truth is that's what the courts need. That's what the lawyers need in order to, adjudicate these court cases. We have to have laws in which they can draw from to make sure that the judges correctly judge these cases. And the truth is too, if we just try to defend all the cases, we will lose. We have to go on the offense. We have to be aggressive, and we have to make sure that. And again, it's not just the ACLU. My gosh, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the Secular Coalition. There's several organizations that their whole tactic is bullying. That's their tactic. They just want to shut people up and threaten them with lawsuits. And we're on the other side saying we're going to bolster the people who are willing to take a stand, and we're going to get the government leaders who are willing to take a stand, and we're going to unite against this bullying tactics.
Yeah,
Bob, there are a couple
needed.
of additional questions, starting with Bishop Jackson.
Hey, Martin, listen, first of all, I'm on vacation, everybody, and my wife just escaped Scowl and walked into a bookstore, a gift store, so I only have a couple of minutes, but I couldn't help myself. I just wanted to call in and see how things were going. And Martin, you're doing a great job. So are you, Bob. I appreciate it. And Leah, I'm sorry that I'm not there to commandeer the call when you're our guest, but I'm sure you understand that sometimes you got to get away and rest. And something I promised my wife. So miss everybody and looking forward to being back with you again next week. Leah, since I was listening in, I had a couple of questions for you. One is, if you have a bipartisan effort in prayer that is seeming to go so well, why is it that it's not reflected in some greater unity in Congress, in the House particularly, and standing up against some of the policies and speaking out against some of the things that this president is doing and some of the things that are happening in our country? When it comes to voting, it seems to always be pretty much straight down party lines. And so I'm trying to figure out where's the disconnect between all of these Christians or from both parties who are gathering together in prayer, but they can't seem to gather together around biblical worldview policy and to oppose those things that they know are not consistent with that. So something, I'm trying to understand how does that work? So that was question number one. The second question I would ask is, I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that the IRS has now entered into an agreement where we're about to put something out on this, entered into an agreement with the atheists, with the Freedom from Religion Foundation, to monitor churches and to see whether churches are violating IRS rules and the Johnson Act. And so this is a very, very chilling thing, that IRS agents could walk into churches to listen to what pastors are saying, buy their sermons, monitor them, threaten their IRS tax exemption, and who knows what else. I mean, this is unprecedented, unheard of. Is there concern in Congress about this? So sorry for the two long questions, and thanks again, Leah, for being there for us and doing such great work. We really appreciate it. So God bless you all, and I'll just let you go, Leah, and answer the question. And I'm done, everybody. I'll see you again next Tuesday at 12 noon. I will be back in the saddle.
Thanks, David.
Well, Bishop, it's I know he's gone, but it's a joy to be here, and I just am thrilled and grateful that he gets to have vacation, and appreciate him chiming in. And those were two great questions. I'd love to take a stab at those. I think he has a really good point in regarding uniting in prayer, and I can't help but thinking back to when the government leaders came together to try to form this great country, and how different their worldview and their values were, and how contentious and angry and back and forth they went, and how many times they ended up on two completely divided sides of the aisle. And the fact is, I'm actually not in those prayer times with them. I'm not in Congress with them. I'm an outside organization. But what I do know is that these things do take time, and they are the things that they've been able to accomplish by coming together in prayer and building relationships across the aisle. It's not enough. We want it to happen more. There's no question that if they would come together in unity, in genuine prayer, and come together around the concepts of the biblical worldview, we would come closer in line together. But we're also not talking about 100% of members in our government and Congress either. We're talking about a percentage of people. And we believe that those people, they have given, have been able to give a report that some of the impact that they've had has been significant. But the caucus, the Congressional Prayer Caucus, too, these members that are coming together, they are uniting around this one issue, which we believe is absolutely crucial, and this issue, which is religious freedom and God's place in America, preserving our Judeo-Christian heritage. Because I think we all know that if we lose that first freedom, everything else unravels rapidly. Just again, look across the water, and we can see that. And then the second question regarding the IRS and the atheists, yes, I think we all agree that that is chilling. It's always been chilling. The separation of church and state phrase has been so distorted and misapplied for decades now that pastors are afraid to speak out about anything having to do with politics or political parties or individuals that are campaigning which, of course, they look to the IRS Johnson Amendment and say, well, we can't say about anything. And this is just taking it one step further, saying not only can you not speak about political candidates, but you can't even talk about anything to do with public policy. Well, this is astounding. I mean, this is taking a step way beyond. They are trying to, they are literally the atheists and all the folks that are funding this behind this. It's part of the overall orchestrated agenda that they have put into place now and been putting forth for decades to do everything they can from every angle to quiet the pastors, shut the Christians up, make sure that God is not spoken about in the public square. And this is just one more attempt. And the fact of the matter is not only do members of Congress have to stand up, not only do state government leaders across the nation stand up, which many of them are and will, but citizens have to rise up and make such a loud voice, because our government leaders still do respond to the citizens. And the citizens are still the ones that will influence those government leaders. And this, absolutely without question, must be at the forefront of an uprising of voices and prayer and action to ensure that this does not go through.
Great. We've got another call coming in from the Shenandoah Valley at 89.
Whoops.
Oh boy, that was that was Dean Welty, and one of the things that I know that he wanted to talk about was the fact that there are individuals, and if you've got a question, you can always dial *6 again. If you've got a question, you can always dial again. But Dean Welty wanted to ask the question that if people are aware of the fact that there are license plates here in Virginia with the "In God We Trust" motto on it, and Virginia is known for a number of things. We've got all kinds of license plates, but the seventh grossing license plate is "In God We Trust," and there are over 31,000 license plates in Virginia with "In God We Trust" on it. So again, I just wanted to, and it looks like Dean has joined us again, and so we're going to see if we can get him on. Is that Dean?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Well, you've pretty much summarized. I just wanted to ask Leah, I just saw this morning an email from Wall Builders about your In God We Trust window decals, so I know you're working on that. But I just wondered, too, if you're involved with promoting In God We Trust license plates across America. I note that there are 15 states that already have In God We Trust license plates. And as indicated, we're now over 31,000 in Virginia just over the past 2 years. And so just to encourage listeners to explore that in their own states if they don't already have one, and just to see whether the Congressional Prayer Caucus or your organization, your foundation, is involved in promoting the license plates in other states.
Well, thank you, Dean, for asking. We haven't yet gotten to that, but it is a great idea, and we are strongly behind anybody that wants to promote the license plates, and we're thrilled. We did know about Virginia's license plates, and we've had several people from different states that have contacted us, and every time we say, absolutely, go for it, how can we help you? So we would really love to see this happen in all 50 states as well. And once we get right now we have several campaigns or layers of this campaign that are rolling out, but I'm certainly open to making the license plate one of those layers as soon as we can, if it makes sense. But anything anybody can do to help us get license plates in the states would be welcome.
Thank you.
Great. Got one last question from caller number 8802.
Yes, this is Roland Smith from Northern Virginia. And my question is more of a philosophical question and looking forward and how we can get a response from folks who claim to have Christian values. So when you look at our situation in our culture, you look to things like the media, and we as Christians commonly complain about how liberal the media has become. And one of the chief reasons that is so is that Christians have absented themselves from the media itself. And likewise, we complain about Hollywood, we complain about schools, we complain about politics as being, for example, politics being a dirty business. But one of the reasons it's a dirty business is because a great many of Christians are not involved. And when you look at the voting of Christians, a great many of them don't vote, and those who don't vote, a great many of those are not even registered. So my question philosophically is, what is it that we can do? What are your insights about what can be done? Because I run a nonprofit myself, and I'm looking at the same question. So what is it that can be done to stir up Christians to action so that they might actually do something, be a part of something that represents their Christian values in their culture, beyond going to church, beyond being in Bible study, beyond giving to service ministries, but being actively engaged in the culture? And so I'd be interested to hear your comments about that. Thank you.
Sure. That's a great question. That is the question of the day, really, too, isn't it? Because behavior follows beliefs. And there is a belief in our nation amongst Christians that our only concern needs to be about the Redeemer realm, the realm of salvation, the realm of telling people about Christ. But we've completely abdicated our responsibility in the Creator realm, in the realm where God told us to be salt and light, in the realm and there isn't one thing in this world that God hasn't created, and that Christians and the Bible doesn't have answers for and solutions for. And we were supposed to bring those answers and solutions, just like our founding fathers did. They brought answers to so many of the everyday questions that we face in our public square, in our civic life. And so I agree with you wholeheartedly. So how do we get people again to remember that they have a civic responsibility? And I think a couple of different things. One, there's no question that the vast majority of people in America are listening still to pastors and Christian leaders, reading books. And I think many of our Christian leaders and pastors and faith leaders need to be speaking out boldly and strongly and encouraging people to get educated and get involved. And I'm not sure that that's happening at the level that we need it to happen, but I definitely think it's increasing. I really have seen an increase. I know that there's quite a few organizations now that are beginning to unite together. And that's the second thing I would say, is not only do leaders need to begin speaking and encouraging people to get engaged and get involved, but also the second thing is that organizations and churches need to unite and work together, because that's the other way in which things happen. There's only two ways that God has, that things have ever been changed, and that's through prayer and action. And so I think, and we had a third thing, which is education, which is a part of action. But we believe that there is an increase in prayer across this nation. We see prayer ministries and organizations that are coming together and praying together and working together. We believe that we see organizations now that are uniting in ways they've never united before, trying to encourage people to get informed, get aware, get engaged with what's happening in the country. And then in education, any opportunity that any of us have to educate somebody or groups or churches about what's happening in this nation and the responsibility that we have to God and to our fellow man to steward what God has given us here in America, this freedom, which we only have by His hand and by His blessing, then I think, that's what it's going to take: prayer, action, and education. And uniting.
Thank you.
That's
hey,
great.
Martin, can I add a little something to that?
Sure.
Leah's right. There are more Christians getting organized. There are more organizations rising up. Vision America is one that Rick Scarborough heads in Texas, and that is an organization that is equipping pastors to enter the public square, to encourage their congregations to get involved. There's True the Vote, and that's run by Catherine Engelbrecht, a very courageous Christian woman who's determined to see that voting rolls are cleaned up and that Christians and others, register to vote, get their friends registered, get everybody registered to vote, and then go out and vote. There's a lot of action going on out there. There's a lot of ferment, but there needs to be a lot more. Lee, I've never heard it put the way you did. You're talking about pastors talking about the realm of salvation, but ignoring the creator realm. I find that fascinating because I do find it disconcerting when you hear pastors just talking about salvation, and as if the world around us is not pressing on the church doors even now, and people have questions about it. And I understand pastors are saying, well, I don't want to say anything controversial. People might not come to the church, and we got to save souls. That's our number one goal. But the Great Commission is also about not only spreading the gospel, but equipping believers. And you can't equip them if you never talk about what's really happening in their lives outside church. So I think groups like Vision America and others, Unity and Purpose, are trying to spread the word that the pastors can go ahead and address these issues. And one last point is that this is chilling that the IRS is teaming up with the Freedom from Religion Foundation. But I'm wondering why they're even bothering, because for years the Alliance Defending Freedom has staged Pulpit Freedom Sunday, where pastors challenge this terrible Johnson Amendment and go into the pulpit, even endorse candidates, do everything they say you can't do without losing your tax exemption, tape the message and send it to the IRS. They're up to 1,000 pastors now doing this. So the IRS has no shortage of evidence of this type of thing, but they don't dare take it to court because it's so unconstitutional. It so violates the First Amendment to tell pastors what to say in the pulpit that they don't want a test case. So pastors ought to feel a lot freer to say whatever they want from the pulpit. And I hope this IRS move doesn't chill their speech any further.
That's
any more questions, Bob? Martin?
No, that's it. That concludes our questions for today.
Okay, well, Leah, you did a great job. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for all you're doing. If we're not down on our knees, then the Lord is going to just let this nation go. A lot of Christians are worried that he's already brought us into judgment, given what's happening in our culture and the way we're stumbling overseas. But I don't think so. I don't think he's taken his hand off the nation yet. And he's just waiting for his people to rise up in prayer and be a force for his word and his principles in this society. So thank you for all you're doing.
Well, it's a pleasure, Bob. Thank you. I really do appreciate all that you're doing, and I think together, if we continue, we'll see a turn in this nation, just like you're saying.
Well, Bob, I know if Bishop Jackson were here, he would first thank you for hosting today's event, and also thank you as well, Leah, for the work that you're doing there in Washington, and just want to commend you just for galvanizing not only Washington but also galvanizing our nation. We are going to conclude a call and just want everyone to know that next week we're going to have on Pastor Travis Witt, who's president of the Virginia Tea Party Foundation, or Virginia Tea Party Federation, and want to invite everybody to join Bishop Jackson next Tuesday at noon here again on the call. So thanks, everyone, for participating, and you all have a great and blessed day.